Look, and thank you to the Deputy for your question, and just maybe to join with wishing everyone a happy Christmas and a peaceful Christmas, and I hope everyone gets a good break. I suppose maybe sorry to disappoint you that I won't be outlining in great detail the contingency planning that will be announced tomorrow, obviously by the Taoiseach, but just to say, as many have mentioned, the Commission have already published their Implementing Commission's Contingency Action Plan. It includes 14 measures in areas where a no-deal scenario would come into play, and it's focusing on different issues which obviously have huge significance for Ireland, from our land bridge, aviation, tourism, the agri-food sector, EU programmes, climate policy, and so on. And obviously, as the Taoiseach mentioned earlier on in his Leaders' Questions response, a lot of this and a lot of the work that we do in our legislation and contingency planning will follow on from this. So we hope that later on this evening the Cabinet will be updated on our own plans. Then, of course, opposition leaders will be given that information, and then tomorrow it will be officially published. It will also be discussed at the stakeholder forum, where not just the political representatives but also representatives from everywhere to agriculture, education, labour representation will be also able to engage on this. It's extremely important that we get this right, and I think it's not a matter of us trying to hide anything from anybody. It has taken a long time for departments, whether it's individual ministers focusing on issues within their own remit or working together collectively, to actually identify what the possible challenges might be, and then of course making sure that that is very much aligned with the European Commission's position and plans. So we will be able to get that information to you obviously as quickly as possible. In terms of the discussions on the Euro Summit at the meeting which took place last week, the key issue for Ireland at the Eurogroup was protecting our position on the non-performing loans, and the text which emerged from it, we believe, does that. We also had concerns on voting and debt sustainability, which again we believe are protected. In terms of the euro area budget, the discussions at the summit focused on paragraph 4 of the summit statement relating to the French-German proposals for this. The draft summit statement set a spring 2019 deadline for an agreement for the general features of this budget, but the Finnish Prime Minister had asked for this to be changed to June of 2019, and this was supported by many Member States, including Ireland. There was also a discussion, as you've mentioned, about reference to the risk-sharing components of the EMU. This includes the European Deposit Insurance Scheme and a stabilisation function of the European area. The final text makes no such reference. However, the Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, and the ECB President, Draghi, noted the need for greater risk-sharing at some point into the future. In terms of, I suppose, the overall discussion of the insurance fund, this is something that we are very much open to, and I think then again, in terms of the euro area budget, we have mandated our finance ministers to work on the design, the method of implementation and the timing of the budget line for the euro area, which would sit within the wider EU budget, and it would be aimed at enhancing most specifically the convergence and the competitiveness of the euro area. The next steps in that regard, as I've said, in addition to the deadline which has been set, finance ministers have a number of additional priorities. Particularly, they will prepare the necessary amendments to the ESM Treaty by June 2019, as I've said, and that after that any revision to the ESM Treaty would have to be ratified by all 19 ESM member states, which would require involvement of our own national parliaments, and obviously this would come back to us in that regard. In terms of migration, this is a discussion that is ongoing. It's ongoing at the General Affairs, which I attend, and obviously the European leaders discuss it on a regular basis at the Council meeting. I think what we do agree on, while there is a lot of disagreement as to how this issue can be dealt with, is that we can only effectively deal with it by working together. The June European Council, which had a particular focus on this issue, had a three-pronged approach. The first one, strengthening our cooperation with countries of origin and transit. Secondly, securing our external borders. And thirdly, dealing with the management of migrants within the EU. It is fair to say, and the Deputy has outlined this, that progress has been slow in these areas. You have two additional concepts which have been advanced since June: the control centres and disembarkation platforms, which again I don't think really got very much support, because what you're requiring is other countries external to the European Union that they would take on board and that they would offer to take migrants within their own countries, and that's not something that many have been forthcoming with at the moment. For us, our particular focus is on working with the countries of origin, and we have we have consistently stated this, in particular our relationship with Africa. The Taoiseach was at the Africa EU Summit earlier on this week, where I think good progress was made in terms of trying to strengthen and develop our relationship, but in particular in the area of agriculture. They agreed to develop and work together on putting together a plan, essentially, because the more we focus on the countries of origin where our migrants are coming from, then obviously less people will be travelling, and obviously the less we have to work with them who are travelling to Europe. We've also pledged €15 million to the EU Africa Trust Fund, which will have a significant impact on that.